Describe a book you've read more than once.
You're thinking, I don't read books. Perfect, because in the next 12 minutes, you're going to learn how to give a Band 8 answer about a book you've never actually touched, and why that's completely fine.
Here's the secret most students don't know. Examiners don't care if you've read the book. They can't fact-check your reading history. What they care about is how you talk about it.
So let's break this down.
And that is exactly what we're covering today. I'm Felicity, and that's Anthony. And if you're panicking about book questions, you're in the right place.
You really are. And look, what makes this podcast different is that the advice you're hearing comes from over 10 years of real examiner experience. We're talking thousands of actual IELTS tests. So when we say examiners don't check if you've read the book, we know this because we've been in that chair.
Right, and this is actually one of the most common Part 2 topics that causes unnecessary stress. Students see describe a book and immediately think, oh no, I haven't read anything since school.
Exactly. And they either panic and give a terrible answer about some random book they half remember, or they freeze completely.
Neither of which is necessary, because today we're going to show you 3 ways to absolutely nail this question, even if the last book you read was actually a movie you watched on Netflix.
So stick around because by the end of this episode, you'll have a complete strategy and a model answer you can adapt for your own test. All right, so let's look at the actual cue card first. Felicity, do you want to read this out like an examiner would?
Sure, so I'll be the examiner now. I'd like you to describe a book you have read more than once. You should say what the book is, what it's about, why you decided to read it again, and explain what you learned or gained from reading this book more than once. You have 1 minute to prepare, and you can make notes if you wish.
Right, so that's the cue card. And I want you to notice something. It says a book you have read more than once. It doesn't say a literary masterpiece you've analyzed in depth.
Good point. It could be literally anything.
Exactly, and this is where strategy number 1 comes in. Here's something most students don't realize. Many films are based on books. So if you've watched Harry Potter, The Hunger Games, The Notebook, Pride and Prejudice, The Lord of the Rings, you can talk about the book.
Oh, that's clever. So even if you've never actually read Harry Potter,
You can still describe the book because you know the story, you know the characters, you know why it's compelling, and the examiner has no way of knowing whether you read it or watched it.
and this connects back to episode 5, right? The fabrication principle.
Exactly. Remember, the IELTS speaking test assesses your language ability, not your reading habits. The examiner isn't grading you on literary knowledge. They're listening for fluency, vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. Content accuracy doesn't matter.
So if someone's favorite book is actually a film they've watched 5 times,
Talk about it like a book. Use phrases like, I first came across this story when, or what drew me to this book initially was. The examiner doesn't care how you consumed a story.
that's actually quite liberating.
It really is. Now, quick reminder, if this is clicking for you, hit subscribe. We drop new episodes every week with more insider strategies exactly like this. All right, strategy number 2. Simple books work perfectly fine.
What do you mean by simple?
I mean, you don't need to talk about War and Peace or some Nobel Prize winning novel. You can talk about a children's book you loved as a kid, a self help book like The 7 Habits or Rich Dad Poor Dad, even a recipe book if you can make it interesting.
Really? A recipe book?
I mean, you'd need to frame it well, but yes. The point is, the examiner wants to hear good English, not impressive literary taste. A Band 8 answer about a simple self help book beats a Band 5 answer about Shakespeare every single time.
That makes sense. So what makes the difference between those band scores?
Great question. Let me show you. Here's a Band 5-6 answer about a book. Listen to this. The book I read is Harry Potter. It is a very good book. I read it many times. It is about magic and a boy. I like it because it is interesting.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty basic.
Right? Simple sentences only, no development, very repetitive vocabulary. Good, interesting, no personal connection. Now, here is band 6-7. I'd like to talk about Harry Potter, which is a book I've read several times. It's a fantasy novel about a young wizard who goes to a magical school. I first read it when I was about 12, and I've returned to it because it brings back fond memories of my childhood.
Better. There's more details, some complex structures.
Exactly. We've got which is, because, more specific vocabulary like fantasy novel, fond memories. But it's still not quite Band Aid. Now, listen to this. The book I'd like to talk about is actually The Great Gatsby by F.C.'s Fitzgerald. What initially drew me to it was a recommendation from a friend who said it was a must read for anyone interested in American literature. I first picked it up about 5 years ago, and I've probably reread it 3 or 4 times since then. What keeps pulling me back is this kind of melancholy beauty in the writing, you know? The part that really resonated with me was the ending. It's quite bittersweet, and I find myself relating to different aspects each time I revisit it. Every time I read it, I notice something new about the characters or the symbolism that I'd missed before,
Wow, that's completely different.
right? Notice what's happening there. Natural hedging, like actually kind of, sophisticated vocabulary like melancholy, bittersweet, resonating. Complex structures like what initially drew me to it was what keeps pulling me back is personal reflection relating to different aspects each time. The answer develops, it doesn't just state facts.
And that's what examiners are listening for.
Exactly. Now, I want everyone listening to practice one of those phrases. Say it out loud with me. What initially drew me to it was.
Go on, say it. What initially drew me to it was.
Good. Use that in your next part two answer. It sounds natural and sophisticated.
Okay, so we've got movies count, simple books work. What's the third strategy?
Strategy three is this: focus on impact, not plot summary. This is where most students go wrong. They spend their entire 2 minutes summarizing the story. First, this happened, then this happened, and at the end,
Like a book report.
exactly like a book report. And that's boring. The examiner has heard 1,000 plot summaries. What they want to hear is how the book affected you.
So instead of, the book is about a boy who goes to wizard school and fights an evil wizard,
You'd say something like, what stayed with me was a sense of belonging, the idea that you can find your true family in unexpected places. I found myself relating to the main character's search for identity, and honestly, every time I revisit it, I notice different themes that resonate with where I am in life.
that's so much more personal.
And it shows range. You're demonstrating vocabulary like resonated, identity, belonging. You're using complex structures. You're showing reflection and depth. Here's another phrase to practice: the part that really resonated with me.
Say it. The part that really resonated with me.
Perfect. That phrase signals sophisticated thinking to the examiner.
All right, so can we hear a complete model answer, start to finish?
Absolutely. You'll play the examiner first, and I'll give a full response. Ready?
As examiner, I'd like you to describe a book you have read more than once.
Candidate. The book I'd like to talk about is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. It's quite a famous self help book, I'd suppose you'd call it, or maybe philosophical fiction. What initially drew me to it was actually a recommendation from my uncle. He'd read it multiple times himself and said it was one of those books that, changes how you see things. So I was curious. The story follows a young shepherd who dreams of finding treasure and goes on this journey across a desert. But it's less about the plot and more about the message. This idea of following your personal legend, which basically means pursuing your dreams even when it's difficult. The part that really resonated with me was this line about how when you really want something, the universe conspires to help you achieve it. I know it sounds a bit idealistic, but I found myself relating to that idea during a time when I was making some big decisions about my career. What I've gained from rereading it is interesting, actually. Every time I revisit it, I'm at a different stage in life, so different parts speak to me. The first time, I focused on the adventure. The second time, it was more about the relationships. And recently, I've been thinking more about the symbolism. It's the kind of book that I suppose it grows with you. And that's why I keep coming back to it.
That was excellent. And notice you didn't spend ages on the plot.
Right, maybe 15 seconds on what it's about, then everything else was personal reflection, impact, what I gained. That's what scores highly.
All right, so let's wrap up with 3 quick wins you can use immediately.
Hit us with them.
Felicity, upbeat, clear. Number 1, movies count. If you've watched the film, you can talk about the book. Harry Potter, The Lord of the Rings, Pride and Prejudice, fair game. The examiner cannot fact-check your reading habits. Number 2, simple books work. You don't need to impress anyone with literary knowledge. A children's book, a self-help book, even a textbook. What matters is how you talk about it, not what you're talking about. And number 3, focus on impact, not plot. Don't summarize the story like a book report. Tell the examiner how it affected you, why it stayed with you, what you gained from revisiting it.
And remember those key phrases we practiced. What initially drew me to it? The part that really resonated with me. It's the kind of book that every time I revisit it.
Bite those down, practice them. They'll make your Part 2 answers sound instantly more sophisticated.
And that's a wrap on episode 14. If you found this helpful, smash that subscribe button. We're releasing new episodes every week to help you nail your IELTS speaking test.
And what's coming next?
Oh, next episode is a big one. We're talking about storytelling, specifically how to tell stories that examiners actually want to hear. Because let me tell you, after examining thousands of candidates, I can tell you exactly what makes examiners tune out and what makes them sit up and pay attention.
Ooh, I'm looking forward to that one.
It's called How to Tell Stories Examiners Actually Want to Hear. Make sure you don't miss it.
Until then, keep practicing, stay confident, and remember, they're testing your English, not your reading list.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone.